Okay, so today we're going to jump into something pretty wild, honestly.
Yeah.
And it all starts with a listener who sent us these logs and dialogue recordings, basically detailing the discovery of a brand new element.
A new element. That's pretty exciting in itself.
It is, but not just any element.
Okay.
This one's stable.
Stable.
Yeah, stable. And it's way heavier than anything we've ever seen before.
How heavy are we talking?
Over 550 nucleons.
Wow, that is massive.
Yeah, and get this, it wasn't created in some lab.
Nope.
Nope, they found it naturally occurring in the rings of a Class D planet.
So like just hanging out with the space dust and rocks.
Pretty much.
Huh. That's incredible. I mean, a naturally occurring transuranic element that's unheard of.
I know, right? And it raises so many questions about like what we even know about nuclear physics.
Yeah, like does this have any connection to that theoretical island of stability they've been talking about?
Could be.
The one where some heavier elements might be more stable than we think.
Exactly. It's all speculation at this point, but this discovery could really shake things up.
For sure. And this listener sent us stuff about the away team's initial investigation.
Oh, yeah. They sent us the good stuff.
Awesome.
So, picture this. Commander Chakotay, Lieutenant Torres, Ensign Kim.
The dream team.
Right. They're out there in the asteroid rings.
Where they found the element.
Yeah, and they're all pretty excited naturally.
Makes sense. A new element, a new planetary system.
And would you believe these asteroids had Class M atmospheres?
You're kidding.
Nope. Breathable air. So they're basically taking a spacewalk through some really interesting rocks. But then...
There's always a but.
Right. They tracked the highest concentration of the element to this big cavern.
Okay.
And inside wasn't just some mineral deposit or anything like that.
What was it?
Something way more, well, it was organic.
Organic. Like what?
So first they find this weird residue, like a cobweb, but it's actually some kind of biopolymer.
Biopolymer, huh?
Mm-hmm.
So like a naturally occurring plastic, but definitely biological.
Yeah, exactly. And that alone was like, whoa, hold on, what's going on here?
Yeah, that's a big red flag that something's different.
And then it gets even weirder because they find bodies.
Bodies.
Yeah, humanoid bodies. 18 of them, to be exact.
What?
11 male, 7 female, all in various stages of decomposition.
So they stumbled upon some kind of graveyard.
Maybe. But here's the kicker. The new element, element 24/7, it was coming from the bodies.
Like emanating from them?
Emanating from them. They figured it was a byproduct of the decomposition process.
So these bodies are basically radioactive, but with this new element.
That's what they were thinking.
Wow, that's heavy, literally.
Yeah, Chakotay immediately suggests they don't touch anything.
Good call. I mean, talk about respecting the dead.
He was thinking burial site or something similar.
Makes sense. You stumble upon a bunch of bodies in a cave, you probably shouldn't go poking around.
Exactly. But Ensign Kim, being the ever-curious scientist,
I can only imagine.
he saw this as like the ultimate anthropological opportunity.
Well, yeah, I mean, a brand new species, maybe a new culture to learn about.
Right. He was pushing for further investigation, saying this could be a form of first contact.
It's an interesting ethical dilemma, right?
Totally. Curiosity versus respect for the unknown.
Did they end up doing more investigation?
Captain Janeway sided with Chakotay.
The cautious approach?
She ordered passive scans only.
So no poking and prodding?
Nope. Just looking from a distance.
What did they manage to see with the scans?
Well, one thing that stood out was that all the bodies were naked.
Naked?
Yeah, no clothes or anything, which got them thinking maybe these beings didn't believe in, like, dressing the dead or burying them with possessions.
Like the afterlife is purely spiritual for them.
Possibly.
Hmm.
But they were all posed in these serene positions and wrapped in that biopolymer stuff.
So maybe some kind of ritualistic send-off.
That's what it seemed like.
So belief in an afterlife, but maybe a different concept than we're used to.
Right. And then things took a really dramatic turn. They hear this weird wind-like sound, then there's this flash of light, and suddenly a dimensional distortion pops up right there in the cavern.
A dimensional distortion? Like what?
A subspace vacuole.
A subspace vacuole?
Yeah, basically a tear in space-time.
Okay, that's not good.
Yeah, it wasn't good. They initiated an emergency beam-out.
Get me out of here.
Exactly. But in all the chaos, Chakotay and Torres made it back to Voyager, along with one of the bodies.
But not everyone.
Ensign Kim, he disappeared.
Just gone.
Vanished into thin air or subspace, I guess.
And the subspace vacuole just closed up.
Yeah, like it was never there.
So what happened to Kim?
We'll get to that. But first, Things got even weirder back on Voyager.
Weirder than a subspace vacuole appearing in a cave full of bodies. How is that even possible?
Well, at the exact moment Kim disappeared, another humanoid body materialized in the transporter room.
You're kidding me?
Nope. And this body wasn't one of the original 18.
So where did it come from?
That's the million-dollar question.
And to make things even stranger, I'm guessing this body wasn't exactly dead?
You got it. It showed signs of recent brain activity, like it had died just minutes before.
Wow, that's some serious transporter malfunction.
Torres wanted to try and revive her, maybe get some answers.
Understandable.
But Chakotay was hesitant about messing with the recently departed.
Yeah, that's a tough call. You want answers, but you don't want to disrespect the dead.
Exactly.
So, let me guess. Kim ended up somewhere completely unexpected.
You could say that he woke up inside a cenotaph.
A what?
A cenotaph. It's basically like a tomb or a monument, but this one was active doing something.
Active? Like what?
Well, it turns out he was on the homeworld of those beings we saw in the cavern.
Yeah.
The Nori. And he landed smack dab in the middle of some ritual.
A ritual? What kind of ritual?
It seemed like this woman named Tara was undergoing a transition.
Transition to what?
To the next emanation, whatever that means.
The next emanation sounds kind of spiritual.
It definitely did.
So Kim accidentally crashed a funeral.
Well, sort of, but their whole concept of death was completely different from what Kim had seen back in that cave.
Different how?
The Venori, they believe death isn't the end, it's just the beginning of a journey to this next emanation.
So they believe in an afterlife.
Yeah, and they think this transition is triggered by these cenotaphs and the appearance of something they call a spectral rupture.
A spectral rupture. That sounds familiar.
It does, doesn't it? It sounded a lot like the subspace vacuole they encountered.
But Kim saw bodies decomposing on those asteroids.
You're right. It's a pretty big disconnect.
Huge.
And to make things even more confusing, Dr. Nuria enters the scene.
Doctor Who?
Nuria, she's their chief thanatologist.
Thanatologist, so like they're expert on death.
Exactly. And Kim tries to explain everything to her about where he's from and about finding their dead on these asteroids in this place they think is the afterlife.
Did she believe him?
Well, here's the thing. The Venori have no knowledge of ringed planets.
None at all.
Nope. So Dr. Nuria just became convinced that Kim had somehow returned from the next emanation.
From the afterlife.
Yeah. It was a total communication breakdown.
So they're thinking he's some kind of miracle, while he's thinking they're all delusional.
Pretty much.
What happened next?
Yeah.
Did they ever figure things out?
Well, back on Voyager, they managed to revive the woman from the transporter Terra.
The one who materialized out of thin air.
Yeah, and she was understandably confused.
I can only imagine expecting the afterlife and ending up on a starship.
Exactly. When they tried to explain what they'd found, Terra was devastated.
Poor woman. Her whole world just got flipped upside down.
And then the EMH discovered something pretty crucial.
What's that?
That biopolymer stuff. It's not some external wrapping they put on the bodies.
No.
It's a natural byproduct of their decomposition process.
Oh, wow. So they really are just bodies out there in space.
It seems so.
That completely contradicts their whole belief system.
Totally. And it gets even more complicated because meanwhile, back on the Venori planet,
Yeah.
Nuria is explaining the whole deal with these cenotaphs.
What does she say?
They're designed to end life at the exact moment a spectral rupture appears.
One of those subspace vacuole things.
The one and only.
So they're basically killing themselves to get to this next emanation.
That's what it looks like. And apparently these vacuoles are a natural phenomenon on their world.
They just happen.
Yep, every 6 hours. And they've built these cenotaphs all over the planet to coincide with these events.
Thousands of them.
Thousands. That's how integral this whole belief is to their society.
Wow. So they built their entire civilization around this idea of transitioning to another plane of existence.
Yeah, and poor Ensign Kim is stuck in the middle of it all.
Stuck out.
Well, Nuria sees him as this incredible anomaly, someone who's returned from the dead.
Which he technically did, sort of.
I know, right? It's complicated. But she's determined to study him, which doesn't bode well for his return to Voyager.
So he's like a lab rat now.
Pretty much.
What did Voyager do? They weren't just going to leave him there, Reg.
Of course not.
No.
They scanned the ring system and made a pretty grim discovery.
What did they find?
Over 200,000 alien bodies on those asteroids.
200,000.
Yeah, and the subspace vacuoles, they were appearing every 2 hours, depositing a body and then disappearing.
So this has been going on for a long time.
For who knows how long.
Okay.
And Janeway's priority now was figuring out those vacuoles, hoping to find a way to get Kim back.
It sounds like a long shot.
It was, but they had to try.
So what about Tara, the woman they brought back?
She was understandably not doing well.
I can only imagine. Her whole worldview just crumbled.
She wanted to go home, but back to what? Her entire understanding of life and death was shattered.
Heartbreaking.
Yeah. So Torres and Chakotay came up with a risky plan.
What do they have in mind?
Either recreate the transporter accident that brought Kim through,
If that's even possible.
or try to use a subspace transponder with a vacuole to send Terra back and maybe grab Kim while they're at it.
Sounds extremely dangerous.
It was a huge gamble.
Did it work?
Sadly, no. They tried to transport Terra through a forming vacuole. It didn't go well. She beamed back, dead, covered in that biopolymer stuff.
It's like she completed the ritual in a way.
A tragic confirmation of what was happening out there.
So all those bodies are just lost.
It seemed so. Janeway decided to beam Terra's body to one of the asteroids.
A final gesture of respect.
Yeah.
So what happened with Kim? Did he ever get back?
Well, on the Venori planet, they introduced us to Hatil.
Who's Hatil?
He was an elderly man preparing for his own transference ritual.
So about to go through the whole cenotaph thing.
Yeah, but talking to Kim had planted seeds of doubt in his mind.
About the afterlife.
Yeah, which caused some serious conflict with his wife, Loria, who was a firm believer in the next emanation.
It's got to be tough to have your whole belief system shaken like that.
Absolutely. And with time running out, Kim came up with a very risky plan.
What did he propose?
To use the cenotaph himself.
He'd go through the ritual.
Yeah, hoping Voyager could snag him from the other side during the process.
That's crazy.
It was a long shot. But meanwhile, Hatil would fake his death and try to escape.
So a double switch.
Yeah, very high stakes.
Did it work?
Well, they went through with it. Kim disguised as Hatil in the cenotaph. Loria said her goodbyes, thinking it was her husband.
And back on Voyager.
Another vacuole popped up, this time with an alien female body.
Another one just appeared.
Yeah, and then another one formed right after. And this one had a human body inside.
A human body.
They beamed it to sickbay, and it was Ensign Kim.
He made it back.
Against all odds.
Yeah?
And the EMH was able to revive him.
Wow, that's some serious luck.
It's more than luck. It suggests there's a connection between the Venori ritual, these vacuoles, and moving between dimensions.
But we still don't know exactly how it all works.
Nope. It's a mystery.
Yeah.
But later, when Kim was recovering, Janeway had a conversation with him.
About what happened?
Yeah, he was pretty sure the Venori afterlife wasn't real, just bodies decomposing.
But what about all the weird stuff that happened?
Janeway pointed that out too. She said there was this unusual neural energy coming from the bodies.
So maybe there's something more going on.
She wasn't ready to rule anything out.
That's fair. I mean, death is still a big unknown.
Exactly. So to sum it all up, we started with the new element and ended up diving deep into a cultural clash about life and death.
It's amazing how one discovery can lead you down such a rabbit hole.
I know, right? And it really makes you think about how fragile our beliefs can be.
Especially when confronted with evidence that contradicts them.
What really struck me was the contrast between the Venori's certainty about the afterlife and our own ongoing questions about what happens after we die.
It makes you wonder if maybe we're not so different after all.
Yeah, both searching for answers in our own way.
This whole thing really makes you think, what would you do if you found out your core beliefs were wrong?
Would you cling to what you know or embrace the unknown?
Big questions.
Huge. And who knows what other certainties are out there just waiting to be challenged.
That's the beauty of exploration, right?
Yeah.
Always pushing the boundaries of what we think we know.
Exactly. Well, that's it for this deep dive, but keep those questions in mind as you explore the universe.
And until next time, keep searching.
And stay curious.